Hello, and welcome to Women in Business, where we interview entrepreneurs and senior managers and show you the strengths, successes, obstacles, and roadblocks women experience in business. Since I believe every person in business needs to be visible, I'd like to invite you to watch www.sob6, that's the number 6, tips.com, which will give you some valuable information should you get the call to be on radio or TV, which I think is extremely important. If you'd like to contact me personally, drop me a line at Gayle Carson, that's Gayle, Gayle Carson 13 at gmail.com, or go to my website, www.spunkyoldbroad.com, and sign up for my weekly newsletter. My guest today is Vicky Brown. And as a serial entrepreneur, she's focused her businesses on supporting leaders and the business of leadership. With Edominio, I always going to get this wrong, Edominio Enterprises, human resources consultancy, and also Edominio Insurance Services, which is a full-service employee benefit insurance agency. She blends her vast human resources knowledge with the realities of starting, growing, and running a thriving business. Her focus on business owners in the early stages of building or developing their team is the backbone of her YouTube channel, Leader's Journey. Interesting, though, I think this is a very interesting fact. As a former opera singer, she has a natural talent as a performer, and it comes in handy when she speaks and presents workshops for organizations such as Entrepreneurs Organization, Vistage, West Hollywood Chamber, a National Association of Women Business Owners, and SCORE. Welcome, Vicky.
Thank you very much. I'm so pleased to be here, and thank you for the invitation.
Well, how did you go from being an opera singer to human resources?
I get asked that question a lot. And actually, that is the reason for the very odd name of my company. Idomeneo is actually the name of an opera by Mozart. So I studied music in school. I went to USC, and I was a music education, actually, major. And singing around town. And when I finished, I knew I wasn't going to have a big opera career, mostly because I'm a nester and I wanted to stay in Southern California. So I didn't really want to, move to Germany for a few years and get everything under my belt. So, and I had worked my way through college, so I was already in the business world. So I continued to do that after school. I finally landed at HBO and many years ago, and they didn't have a human resources presence on the West Coast. And I was an executive assistant at the time, and they said, well, we do have a labor attorney out there, so you figure out what needs to happen, and you tell us. They were in New York, and they knew California was unusual around labor law. So that's actually how I got my start. I learned human resources at the foot of a labor attorney, and actually he is my attorney for my company today. So
interesting. Very interesting. And also, right now it's got to be the Wild West out there, because human resources now, with everything that's going on, is going to be so different, because jobs are going to be different and businesses are going to be different and the future is going to be different. So what's the first thing someone needs to do if they need to fill a position?
Right. And you're absolutely right. It's a completely different landscape. First of all, there's a lot, before this circumstance took hold, we were looking at a marketplace that had a dearth of really, really qualified individuals, because we had a very, very low unemployment rate. And so it was challenging to find good people. Unfortunately, fortunately, that is not the case now. There's a lot of great talent on the market. And so when someone's looking at filling a position now, I would tell them the same thing now that I would tell them before, as far as make sure you're very clear on what expectations you have for the person for that role, how that role is going to benefit your organization. Be very, very clear on what you think the success factors for that role are, and then look carefully to find someone that meets those characteristics. But again, I have to say there's a lot of talent that's wonderful talent that's going to be available. I would say think carefully about it's a great opportunity to grow people into your organization. So when you bring in talent, you have a few people who are very, very seasoned, but it's also a good idea to have a few people who are up and coming because you can really give them an opportunity to grow and give them an opportunity to contribute fresh ideas to your organization. So I think it's important to have a good mix.
So, what does someone do if, I mean, we're talking a lot about remote teams at this particular point.
Mhm.
So, what can someone do and what do they need to know if they need to expand their team? I mean, they're going to have to interview at least for a short time more uh,
Mhm.
visually.
Mhm.
Uh, they're going to have to look at candidates differently. So, and also, people are finding they're getting a lot more done working from home.
Right.
So, what, even with, I mean, this distance learning for the kids, I mean, once the schools go back, they're going to have it a lot easier. I mean, I would not want to do this with three kids having to be tutored at the same time. But how does
Absolutely.
someone know um, when they need to expand their team, and how do they go about looking for a candidate?
Sure. I think what happens, particularly for dynamic entrepreneurs, we feel like we can get it done ourselves. We can do it faster, we can do it easier. It's quicker to do it ourselves than to train someone else and monitor their performance. But the reality is that that's not a sustainable strategy. Things will start falling through the cracks. I always think of myself as an endless resource. That is not true. I am not an endless resource. I can't pick up every single bit of the slack all the time. Something is got to give, and it's either going to be me or it's going to be the quality of the work. And when I'm doing all the tasks, I'm not in my genius zone. I'm not doing what I'm best at. There are a number of things that I can perform at A plus level, but there are other things, accounting that I perform at C minus level. And so it's really important to get people on board who can fill in your gaps. So when you start seeing that you are the bottleneck, when you start seeing that things in your organization aren't being done as quickly and in as timely a manner as they have been in the past, or you start seeing mistakes creep up. That was the situation for me. I missed a vital email and I realized I can't be one of one. I can't. I was very fortunate. Business was going well. So there were a lot of things to get done, and I just couldn't do it all myself. When you start encountering those kinds of challenges, that's the time, actually, just before that period, is the time to start thinking about bringing on help. Usually, the first person is going to be some sort of an assistant. That typically is what happens. Many times someone brings on a virtual assistant, and certainly in this environment, you probably will end up bringing on a virtual assistant. Um, and so it's important to know that those tasks, those everyday administrative, keeping your calendar together, maybe handling your social media, handling your incoming and outgoing messages, all of that, those kinds of things should really be handled by someone on your team as opposed to being handled by you. So it's really important, I think, to get talent in the areas where you need it. If sales is a challenge for you, start thinking about getting someone and a process, by the way, in the sales arena. As I mentioned, process, training people correctly is very important. So you do need to have a process. You need to write down how you do what you do. That is the best way to make sure that you have repeatable quality control and that other people are very, very clear on what's required of them.
We know it's interesting because it's so funny. Somebody said the other day to me, "Oh, I'm the bottleneck," to something that I was going on with me. But where do you think people look for candidates today? I mean, do you think it's best by referral? Do you think it's best by people who have sent in resumes? Is it best to go to an employment agency? I mean, where have you had your best success?
I've had my best success. This is going to sound absolutely insane on Craigslist. Now, I will say that that's been an unusual thing over the years, but I have a spectacular staffing director on my team, and she can find a diamond anywhere. So we actually have found a number of valuable contributors through Craigslist. Now, that doesn't mean that she didn't have to go through a pile of resumes. And it only goes to show that you really have to spread your wings. Do everything. So tell everyone. If you're a member of a networking group, broadcast it to the group. Put it on your social media. Put it on your website. I think that you can certainly post on some of the major posting sites like, Monster and Career Builder and Indeed and things of that nature. And there obviously is a cost associated with that. But first, you actually might try, particularly in this environment, you might try posting on your social media and just really getting the word out there with your network. Because if someone can refer someone to you that they know, perhaps know their work quality, that is actually the best candidate that you can start out with an interview with.
It's interesting. So you have to kiss a lot of frogs before you get to the prince. The same thing in dating. See,
Exactly. I've been more fortunate in one than the other. I won't say which.
well, I know that I have been getting a tremendous amount of I can help you kinds of things from LinkedIn. I have a lot of connections there, and I unfortunately don't need them, at this point. And so I do write them back. In fact, I'll tell you the truth. I'm even questioning if I accept them. If they say, for example, I am looking for a position where I can, and then they give what they can do. And I know it's not, somebody that I'm going to hire. I don't always friend them. On the other hand, if someone says, I can get you a lot of leads, or I'm a specialist at marketing, or I can get you a lot of visibility, I write back to them and say, I really am glad that you've contacted me. However, I'm content with who I have at this particular point. But I've been getting a lot of those lately. So what questions do you think you can ask to be sure you're getting at the truth? I can't believe that there are still people who fib on their resumes, but I guess there are. So how do you get to the truth?
Yeah, it is not an overriding problem. It's certainly when I put my cynical hat on, I start talking about this, and it doesn't happen all the time. The vast majority of candidates are, honest and putting forth the real deal as far as their history and their skill set is concerned. But you do run into people who embellish or maybe even, create something out of whole cloth. So the best way to get at that is and actually to also get at whether or not this person has the skill set that you need is really to delve into what's on their resume. So the thing that I used to struggle with is the realization that I can't just take an interview. Someone's ready, they're here. It's supposed to be 2 o'clock. They're here at 2 o'clock. They walk in my office, I grab their resume and start talking to them. I really have to do prep work. It really requires me to sit down, look carefully at their resume, read through it, read through whatever cover letter they've sent in and any other materials that are attached. Look at the qualifications that I need for that position and really craft questions that go after the information that I can't glean from the resume. So if someone says, I have strong customer service skills, I'm going to ask them, give me a time, tell me about a time when you were dealing with a client and things didn't go well. What happened? What did you do? What did the client do? How could you have done it differently? When you think back on that situation, where was the nexus where things could have gone one way or gone another? What have you learned? How would you deal with that situation now? You keep asking questions because the truth is there are a few people out there who can do it, but the vast majority of us can't make up a situation and then answer those questions one right after the other unless the situation really happened. So you can really get a sense of A, whether or not the situation took place, and also B, what did they really do? What happened? How did they bring their skill set to bear to resolve the issue?
And it's so interesting, Vicky, because we know that customer service people are sometimes one of the lowest paid on the totem pole, and yet
Mhm.
they create the entire aura of our business. I had to call somebody to dispute a charge on my credit card the other day, and the person just, I knew he was reading from a script, and I kept
Mhm.
saying, "You're not listening and you're not hearing me. I have a specific issue. I'm giving you the reasons why I am canceling this and why I'm disputing this. And I said, you're giving me the same answer no matter what I say. And I know you're reading from a script." And
Mhm.
so I did that 5 or 6 times. And finally I said, okay, look, I'm going to just call the credit card company. I'm going to dispute the charge, which I did. And they did take it off. But believe it or not, a day later, I got a phone call. I didn't get it because I was on a Zoom meeting, but there was
Mhm.
a on my message that they had refunded the money. So, but why go through all of that? It's so
Yeah.
absolutely ridiculous, you know? So, but I also know there are things that you need to steer clear of. You don't, there are certain no-nos that you cannot ask. And so what are they? What do we need to be careful of not to ask?
And you're absolutely right. There's a whole list of questions. I can give you the list of questions, and I have a little giveaway for your audience, and that list is those questions are on that list. But I will say that if you think about it conceptually, basically, if you are asking any question that will give you and the answer will give you information about something that doesn't have anything to do with the individual performing the job, then you're getting into dangerous waters. So, are you married? Well, that's going to, whether or not they're married is not germane to whether or not they can perform the job. Where were you born? Doesn't matter. How old are you? Doesn't matter. Do you have children? Doesn't matter. So, broadly speaking, if conceptually you think, will the answer to this question help me understand whether or not this person can perform the job? If the answer to that is no, then that's a no-no question. It's probably going to get you into hot water around discrimination or harassment or something of that nature, even though that may not be your intent, because it doesn't have anything to do with the person performing the job. One area that tends to be not a gray area, but I've had pushback from clients sometimes because they say, well, this does have to do with whether or not they perform the job, is the question around how do you have a car? How will you get to work? How far away do you live? And I'm in California, and I will say that specifically California has a huge no-no around that question because the point is that can you be where you need to be when you need to be there? How you get there is completely irrelevant to whether or not you can perform the job responsibility. So if that means you're taking Uber or Lyft everywhere, or you're taking public transportation, or a friend is driving you, granted, we as employers might have some level of concern around the consistency of a solution like that. But the reality is the onus is on the employee. They simply have to be at the meeting at 9:30 no matter what. And that's what you're looking at, whether or not they're performing, not how they're getting there.
So would it be the same situation if someone was required, for example, to work shift work, and let's just say they're a single parent, and they've got 3 kids at home?
Mhm.
Would you be able to ask the question? Uh, would you have any problems with shift work where your times of employment would change week to week? Would that be an off the line question, or is
I
that a
love
legitimate question?
I absolutely love the way you worded that. And the secret sauce is in the wording. So if the question were, I know you have kids at home, will you be able to handle shift work? That's a no no. But the way you asked that question, the way you languaged it was perfect. This is the requirement. It's shift work. It will change possibly from week to week. Will you be able to accomplish that? That is the question. It's completely appropriate because you're getting at whether or not you can uphold the requirements of the job.
And well, I'm glad to know I got that right. I got an
You
A for
did a
that.
great job.
So, what about background checks? I know that a lot of people do drug testing. I have a person in my business networking group who does drug tests on everybody that comes to him for temporary work. So where do background checks and drug testing and all of that, where does that fall into this?
I'm glad you asked the question because that actually is an evolving area. So, I have a number of clients who have done drug tests in the past, and with marijuana becoming legalized at the local, meaning state level, still not at the federal level, it's really created a quagmire for employers. Should we not? There are states that specifically uh, prohibit drug testing, so particularly around marijuana. And so I have had a lot of clients back off of drug testing. There are some industries where it's still very, if you're in transportation, if you're in medical services, things like that, certainly drug tests are still prevalent there. But in other areas where typically I had seen it in the past, I don't see it as much now. Basically, I don't see it at all now. So think very carefully around drug tests. Think very carefully around how you administer them. Absolutely have an outside lab do it. And if you're going to do drug tests, then drug test everyone who is a finalist on the with the with the interviewing process. As far as background checks are concerned, I would say I've had clients who've tried to go it alone and get an investigator, or they call up the candidates past employers themselves. I do not recommend that. It's a little bit of a minefield. You need to make sure there's consistency across all the candidates you're doing the background check on. And you also need to make sure that certain things like, local records are checked and the national records are checked. And the best way to do that is with a reputable background check company. Background checks also come under the Fair Credit Reporting Act. So it's important to know that there are a number of notifications that you are required to get out within a certain period of time before you can even do a background check. So again, a reputable company will be able to help you with that. And then if something comes back, if there's a ding on the background check, there is a process you have to go through before you can decide whether or not you're going to rescind the offer. So you have to give them a chance to, again, I'm in California, so I'm being California centric here, but you have to give them an opportunity to respond to the negative piece. You then have to determine whether or not that particular negative result has anything to do with the job that they're doing. Did they have a joyride 30 years ago, and so they have a record as a juvenile, but as an adult, they're not going to be driving. It was 30 years ago. It doesn't have anything to do with the job. So you really have to take all of that into account. And then, of course, I'm HR, so there's lots of documentation that comes with that.
Wow. Well, we only have about 3 minutes left, and I want to make sure our audience knows how to reach you. Plus, she has this great gift for you guys if you are an employer and even if you're not, because you should know what questions might be asked of you. So she's offering sample interview questions that'll direct you to how you should do it. And that's at her site, leadersjourney.tv/questions. So tell us, Vicky, where people can reach you, because I know they're going to have to know how to spell your firm, and and anything else that you'd like to leave us with.
No worries. Well, as far as reaching me is concerned, we made it easy for you. Actually, if you go to leadersjourney.tv, you will find us. So we understand.
Okay.
I have marketing folks talk to me all the time about the name of the company. They're like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "Well, we're 18. We're going to stick with it." So, and the only thing that I would like to leave your listeners with is this is a great opportunity. It's a challenging time right now. Certainly, we're all in this together, as they say, and it's a challenging time for all of us. But it is a great opportunity to build your business with high quality talent. So I would say if there's any way that you can find to do that, then avail yourself of bringing on great people right now.
Fantastic. Well, now, again, leadersjourney.tv/questions for your free gift, which is sample interview questions, and go to leadersjourney.tv to get a hold of Vicky. And as you can hear from what she has said today, she knows her stuff and she knows what you need to do and what is going to be happening. So I think even if you want to talk to her about, because do you place people outside of California, Vicky? I assume you do.
We actually work with clients nationwide, and we do human resources soup to nuts. So if anyone has any kind of a question around HR, I would be happy to help them out.
Fantastic, because I think those of you out there who are looking for a job, those of you who need to hire for a job, talking to Vicky is going to give you a lot of information, and she might have just the perfect person for you. So pay attention to that as well. Vicky, this has been a joy. I mean, I'm getting educated, and I know things are changing, and rules will change, and laws are different state to state. But this is a trying time for a lot of people. So your information is well received. So I want to thank you so much for being with us today, and hopefully a lot of people will get in touch with you to get those questions.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much again for the invitation. I've had a great time, and you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Dr. Gayle, and I wanted you to know I have a whole bunch of other things to offer you. If you go to spunkyoldbroad.com, you will see an array of SOB stuff for sale and all our latest products and additions. If you're interested in getting on TV, I have a brand new course, Get on TV. And if you want to start your own business, you'll want my SOB Guide to Business Success. I know you'll love them all. I guarantee it.
Thanks for listening to Women in Business. I hope you enjoyed today's show. And if you have any suggestions as to who you'd like me to have as a guest, just email me at gaylecarson13@gmail.com. Be sure to check out www.sob6tips.com. And in the meantime, go to www.spunkyoldbroad.com to see the resources I have for you.